What's happening? Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show here on DRFTv, live.drf.com, livestream.com. The Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle, that would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. If you are watching this as part of the Tuesday block of programming on DRF Live, thank you for doing so. That would be about noon Eastern, depending on how long the Voice of the DRF Players podcast go, give or take a few minutes. If you listen to this thing, podcast version, though, you've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. This is the recap review edition of the Matt Bernier Show, looking back at the weekend of February the 3rd, and really the entire focus of the weekend is the 3-year-olds, so they're going to get the lion's share of the attention when we go through and do each one of these sort of individual profiles and recaps, as opposed to some of the other graded stakes races. We'll also throw together a little bit of a montage for some of the graded stakes that we can't quite touch on, and as we always do, we'll give you the weekend's best Beyer speed figures all across the country. Let's start off, though, with the big one down in South Florida. This was the field for the Holy Bull. These are 3-year-olds going a mile and a 16th down at Gulfstream Park. You had a couple of defections. The 6 Hollywood Star, the outside runner Mississippi, also was withdrawn. That left a field of 9. Eventually, your post-time favorite was down on the inside. The number 1 Enticed for Kieran McLaughlin, Joel Rosario. They went off at odds of 9-5. They did not get the job done. Here's Pete Aiello with the stretch run of the Holy Bull.
Inside, turns away the challenger, Free Drop Billy, and he now has 3 on the rest of the field. Inside the final furlong, no confrontation at all. Audible kicks away. It's Audible and jockey Javier Castellano to win the Holy Bull with style. They won it by 5. Free Drop Billy well clear for second ahead of his barn buddy Tiz.
A visually impressive effort from Audible winning the Holy Bull down at Gulfstream. He pays $8.40 on top. The number 2, Free Drop Billy, one of Dale Roman's charges in this spot, runs second, $4.40 to place. Tiz Mischief, another Romans entrant, $3 to show. The $2 exacta comes back $37.80. $1 trifecta, $4.27, $64.20, and the 10-cent superfecta, $4.271, comes back $12.03. Audible is a 3-year-old colt. He is owned by Windstar Farm, China Horse Club, and SF Racing, trained by Todd Pletcher. Ridden to victory by Javier Castellano. He is 3 of 4 lifetime, over $287,000 in career earnings. He is a New York bred by Oak Bluff Stables LLC, and the pedigree at the bottom of the page, he's by Into Mischief out of a Gilded Time mare named Blue Devil Bell. Audible is a very, very interesting horse simply because this was kind of an out-of-the-blue performance from him, a 99 Beyer speed figure and a 119 time form U.S. rating. The question now is, what do you do with him going forward? Todd Pletcher says all options are on the table, all options are open, but after talking back with Elliot Walden, CEO of Windstar Farm, very likely scenario that he is trained up to the Florida Derby. He would have one more prep leading into the Kentucky Derby. That would be it, the Florida Derby being that final prep. We have seen this story and this picture in the past from Pletcher and company, where get 2 starts into him and have him ready to go first Saturday in May in Louisville. I think this is a fascinating horse because there are some interesting things to take a look. He came home the fastest, his final 5/16 in 29-4. The second fastest was Free Drop Billy. He came home in 30-3, so significantly faster, almost, what we're talking lengths faster at this point. The thing about Audible, as brilliant as he was, mechanically, he really did everything wrong, and no one's really talked about that too much. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind. I know this is his first time going 2 turns, but he was very early to change leads on the turn. That's generally not a good sign. And then just before the wire, he popped back to his left lead. So as brilliant as this performance was, I still think there are some questions that I'm not entirely sure on. Brilliance, talent, no question about it. I just do wonder a little bit as far as the lead changes and whatnot are concerned. Also keep in mind, I believe one of his starts was supposed to be on the turf and it got washed off. So some things just to keep in the back of your mind. No denying how talented this horse is, and he's certainly one of the more fascinating and one of the best 3-year-olds that we've seen as far as time is concerned, and Beyer speed figures and time form U.S. ratings and all those sort of things. But Audible is an interesting one going forward. Free Drop Billy thought he ran very, very well. Dale Romans, they both came out of this race in good shape. He and Tiz Mischief sees no reason why Free Drop Billy would not stay at Gulfstream and possibly running in the next race. That would be the Fountain of Youth prior to the Florida Derby. This is me just kind of throwing things out there. If you put it all together, Free Drop Billy ran well at Gulfstream in this race here. If you run him in the Fountain of Youth as a nice stopgap, then maybe you don't have to run in the Florida Derby. Maybe you wait and say, you know what, go ahead, let Audible run, let anyone else show up in that race if they choose to, and you always have in the back pocket here for these connections that Free Drop Billy is already a Grade 1 winner at Keeneland, so he could very easily have his final prep in Lexington in the Bluegrass leading into the Kentucky Derby. Free Drop Billy, a very good effort from him. The country mile clear of third. He earns a 90 buyer and a 113 time form U.S. rating. Now you've got some of the more, I don't want to say disappointing efforts, but you legitimately had a country mile going back to these horses. You had Tiz Mischief in third and Enticed. Those are the two horses that came out of the Kentucky Jockey Club. They earned buyers of 78 and 76, time form U.S. ratings of 103 and 102. Tiz Mischief, I think it's a good starting off point. Dale Romans usually, generally speaking, coming off of long layoffs like this, 61 to 180 days in graded stakes races, they're usually not cranked up and ready to go. I don't want to hold this one against Tiz Mischief. If anything, I think this is a reason to kind of give Free Drop Billy a little bit of a boost and a little bit of a benefit, because he did all of this with knowing that Romans usually needs to get a race into them before you see their peak performances. Enticed is the one. I said it in the stakes previews, the DRF Bets race of the day. I think the best Godolphin horse that we were going to see on Saturday could have been up at Aqueduct, and we'll talk about him momentarily, in Avery Island. This horse, his dam was It's Tricky. It's Tricky was a brilliantly fast racehorse, and she could do some incredible things. But as the distances got longer, she did not necessarily improve. And I do wonder if that's ultimately where we're going to land and what we're going to look at with Enticed here. There are options for this horse, according to Kieran McLaughlin. They could be looking at the Fountain of Youth on March the 3rd. They could look at the Tampa Bay Derby, which is at a mile on 16th as well. Or they could go to the Gotham. And the Gotham is the one that I kind of have a sneaky feeling is ultimately where they'll go. That's at Aqueduct, and it's at a one-turn mile. And Kieran said he ran well going a mile before. So a lot of things happening here in this Holy Bull. It'll be interesting to see ultimately where all of these horses go. I do think the top two were very clearly the two best in the race, and I think going forward they could be the two best. Audible earns a 99 buyer speed figure winning, and Free Drop Billy earns a 90 buyer speed figure in second place finishing here in the Holy Bull. Those top two, they're both names to keep an eye on. I mentioned how I thought that possibly the best Godolphin horse running on Saturday was Avery Island, not Enticed. Avery Island was going to start in the Withers. This was the field that contested the Withers. He had one withdrawal, the horse on the far outside, California Night. That left a field of 5. Avery Island was coming off of a significant layoff. We hadn't seen him since the Remsen. Coming back at a mile on an eighth, never an easy thing to do. But guess what? He gets the job done, and he looks good doing it. Here's Frank Miramati with the call.
Fire in pursuit now second. Marconi on the outside finding his best stride. There's an eighth of a mile to go. Avery Island is called on to finish the job. He leads it by 2. Marconi and Firenze Fire both firing, but Avery Island maintains a comfortable margin with a 16th to go. Firenze Fire trying so hard in second. Avery Island is simply too good, and he wins the Withers by just over 2 lengths. Firenze Fire second.
Avery Island gets the job done, successful off the bench, winning the Withers, $4.30 on top. Firenze Fire, a gutsy effort from him, $3.40 to place. Marconi, a very nice and interesting effort for Todd Pletcher, runs third, $2.30 to show. The $1 exacta 4-1 comes back $5.60. 50-cent try comes back $6 even. The 10-cent superfecta comes back $3.67. Avery Island is a 3-year-old colt. He is 3 of 5 lifetime, 4 times in the exacta. $365,000 in career earnings, owned and bred by Godolphin. He is a Kentucky bred, trained by Kieran McLaughlin, ridden to victory by Joe Bravo. You take a look at the pedigree. He's by Street Sense out of an AP Indy mare named Kind of Spicy. Guess what? If that doesn't scream distance, I don't know what kind of pedigree at face value does. You watch the way that Avery Island runs, he gives off the impression that distance is only going to be his friend, which is not the same thing that can be said for many of his contemporaries in here. An 87 buyer speed figure and a 114 time form U.S. rating for Avery Island in victory in Saturday's Withers. The interesting thing now going forward is, and I've said this to a few people here in the office, I loved everything about it other than the buyer. Now, the buyer wasn't bad, but we are getting to that point where a horse like Avery Island needs to take that next step. The second start off the bench, I would imagine that's when you're going to see that big jump. If you don't see a pretty big jump, when I say big jump, I'm saying into the low to mid 90s from the 87, because as a 2-year-old, he was running mid 80s, 84, 83, 85 in that ballpark. So he didn't take any sort of a giant step forward, but when you consider Mile and an eighth off the layoff, never an easy thing to deal with. A very, very sharp horse in Firenze Fire, who we'll talk about momentarily. And then you had a three-headed monster from Pletcher between Bal Harbour, Colton, Mississippi, and Marconi. And with the Timeform US color coding system, talking about how fast or slow the fractions of the race are, when you consider he was out there relatively close to hot fractions throughout, this was a pretty good effort, all things considered. I think this is one that Avery Island can certainly build on. Kieran said it was very possible that this horse could have 2 more starts before the Kentucky Derby. You know that distance is his friend. I can't imagine they're going to be turning him back to the 1 mile Gotham. So you'd be looking at distances and races, I don't know, possibly a race like the Tampa Bay Derby that's going to be a month away from now at 1 mile and a 16th. You could be going down to Florida. You could be, maybe you just pull the entire swap and you send Enticed back up for the Gotham and you send Avery Island down to Gulfstream for the Fountain of Youth before you lead into a final mile and an eighth race, whether it's in New York or it's in Florida or Kentucky or Arkansas or anywhere in between. This was a very, very good effort, I thought, from Avery Island. He is certainly one that can move forward. I think this is a very, very interesting 3-year-old prospect. He's going to need to improve from a speed figure standpoint, though. Firenze Fire, 83 buyer, 111 Timeform US rating. Jason Service says he doesn't think that the distance was a problem, the 1 mile and an eighth. I'm going to kindly disagree and politely disagree, saying I think ultimately this is a horse that's better suited for a 1-turn mile. And guess what? His next race, it sounds like it's going to be the Gotham at a 1-turn mile. I think that's going to play into his hooves. I think he's going to be a very, very nice 1-turn horse going forward. I just don't think that distance is his friend. And I think if they continue to truck on with him, which they are entirely entitled to do, it's their horse, they can do what they want with him. We've seen this story a number of times in the past, and thus far anyway, in this year, he looks to me like the poster child for that horse that just, he's very, very good, very talented, doesn't quite want to go that far. Marconi may be one to just keep an eye on. I'm not sure where he'll ultimately start. Todd Pletcher was very non-committal, but he is going to go back down to Florida with Pletcher's crew, and ultimately they'll decide what the next start is for him. So an interesting runner as well there in Marconi. But make no mistake about it, Avery Island right now looks like he could be the goods. 87 buyer speed figure in his first start since the Remsen, and just some food for thought. He finished second in the Remsen behind Catholic Boy. You'll see Catholic Boy on Saturday in the Sam F. Davis at Tampa Bay Downs. Third and final 3-year-old prep from this past weekend was out at Santa Anita, the Great Race Place. This was the field for the Robert B. Lewis. This was the race, I mean, call a spade a spade. It was the weakest of the 3, no question about it going into it. This entire field was eligible for non-winners of one other than. And the tote board, by default, Shiver Me Timbers and Peace kind of took all the money. That's because really they were the ones that you saw some names in their PPs, but really otherwise they didn't have anything on their page that made them any sort of slam dunk or standout or horse that really deserved any sort of serious warrant as opposed to any of the other entrants. The questions with the other entrants were, 1, how good are they? 2, how far do they want to go? And 3, are they fast enough? Well, there is an interesting sort of entrant and horse coming out of this. He eventually went on to win this race. His name is Lombo. Here's the stretch run from Michael Rona.
Timbers capitulating. Ayakara continues to pick up. He's on the inside getting into third. Peace is a long way back fourth. Past the 8th pole comes Lombo beneath Flavion Pratt. He shows them a clean pair of heels. Lombo and the Lewis about 4 lengths in front of Ayakara, who is continuing to find the line encouragingly, but he won't catch Lombo. Lombo beats Ayakara, Dark Vader, Regulate, and Peace.
Lombo gets the job done in his first time going 2 turns, first time against winners. Gate-to-wire fashion scores in the Robert B. Lewis, pays $19.40 on top. The number 1, Ayakara, coming from well off the pace, $6 to place. The number 3, Dark Vader, $13.60 to show. The $1 Exacta comes back $45.60. The 50-cent Trifecta, $413, $226.60. And the $1 Superfecta comes back $4,900, a little bit more than that for a 4138 Super in that order. Lombo, 3-year-old colt. He's run 4 times in his career. He's won twice. This is his second lifetime victory. He is trained by Michael Pender. He's owned by Michael V. Lombardi, hence the name Lombo. He's earned just under $130,000 in career earnings. He is a Kentucky bred by the folks at Twin Creeks Farm, ridden to victory by Flavian Pratt. And you see the pedigree at the bottom of the page. He's by Gradar out of a Johannesburg mare named Bergberg. The interesting thing here about this horse, Lombo, is You listen to Michael Pender afterward. Now, Mike Pender, I think, is one of the more underrated trainers on the West Coast. He does not place horses in over their head. He doesn't place them where they belong. If they're here, he thinks they fit. Well, guess what? This horse comes, he goes out there, he's lone speed. The question was, how far would he want to go? When you listen to Pender talk and you watch that final stretch run, Pender said he's getting a little rubber-legged at the end. And about the 16th pole. That's certainly a concern when you see that he came home in 33-1, which is pedestrian to say the least, and there was only one horse doing any kind of real running from the back of the pack, and that was Ayakara. Makes you wonder as a whole how good this race was. The two favorites were absolutely nowhere, and they were dreadful. Peace and Shiver Me Timbers. I don't know what you do with either one of them at this point. You're going to have to go back to the drawing board if you are the connections involved there. Dark Vader, I thought he ran just fine. I liked him in this spot. I thought he ran very, very well. I think Peter Urton can get him to take a step forward. This is his first start since breaking his maiden back in December at Los Alamitos. Regulate remains to be just a complete conundrum to me. I don't know if he's good or he's not for Baffert and company, but this was an interesting placement for this horse considering he's still eligible for a maiden race, let alone a non-winner's a one other than. So there are so many things about this race that it doesn't feel like this is going to be a very key prep going forward. For what it's worth, Lombo earns an 86 Beyer and a 113 Timeform US rating. I guess if you had to pick one horse coming out of this race, perhaps it's Ayakara. Kent DeSormo afterwards said, hey, I love the way my horse finished. My horse is improving, and he'll only get better as we go longer. I tend to agree with that. I've liked Ayakara for some time, and it feels like this is what he wants to do. 2 turns on dirt. They've tried synth, they've tried turf. He doesn't really step on either one of those. You get him on dirt, you get him a good pace. Again, for what it's worth, the half-mile call here in this race, it was color-coded red for the folks at Timeform US, so maybe that helped set things up for a horse like Ayakara. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like there was a heck of a lot of running going on in this race. I suppose, if I'm being totally kind, I'll take the top 3, and even then, I want to see where the 3 end up in their next start. So very clearly, I said on my show Friday that I felt like this was the junior varsity, and the varsity was the McKinseys and the Instilled Regards and the Solaminis and Bolt Doro and all those kind of horses in Southern California, the Marinos. I maintain that after the weekend. I say that this is the junior varsity, the JV level. Maybe these boys can step up at some point, but right now the varsity, they're just a little bit better. Lombo, though, all credit deserved here, gets the job done, gate to wire fashion, 86 Beyer and a 113 Timeform US rating. Those were the horses that have contested in 3-year-old preps leading up to the Kentucky Derby. Perhaps a horse that at some point will be stretched out to find out if he belongs in a race like the Kentucky Derby is a horse that won the Swale. Let's take a look at the field for the Swale from this past Saturday afternoon. You had a 4-5 favorite in here on the heels of a blowout, very, very impressive 102 Beyer speed figure in his career debut. That would be the number 6 Strike Power for Mark Henning. The question was, against winners with some other heat, how would he fare? Guess what? He passed with flying colors. Here's the stretch run of the Swale.
Inside with outside running tricks to do, but Strike Power straightens for the drive on top by 5 lengths now. Diamond King is trying to get into second with Gotta Go toward the inside with a 16th of a mile to run. Strike Power still has the lead, and he's the real deal. Strike Power to win the Swale in just his second career outing. He won it by 3. Gotta Go second, Diamond King third.
Never in doubt for Strike Power. Gets the job done. $3.60 to win the Swale Stakes. The number 3 Gotta Go comes from off the pace, $7 to place. The number 1 Diamond King runs third, $3.20 to show. The $2 exact comes back $42.40. $1 trifecta 631 comes back $76 even, and the 10-cent superfecta 6312, $18.20. Strike Power is a perfect 2 for 2 so far in his very brief racing career. He's earned $147,960. He was owned and bred by Cortland Farms, and you see the folks there, Donald and Donna Adam, excuse me. Mark Henning is the trainer, ridden to victory by Luis Saez. You take a look at the pedigree. He's by Speightstown out of a Medaglia d'Oro mare named Gold Doro. The question now becomes, when do you find out if this horse wants to stretch out, if he can stretch out? From a Beyer speed figure standpoint, he regressed significantly, but we're being honest. I mean, how the heck is he going to improve from a 102? That's kind of an unrealistic. Whenever you see something, just food for thought going forward, when you see a debut with a Beyer that just looks ridiculous, probably a little bit too high. Realistically, probably going to need to be toned down at some point because it is just incredibly unlikely and almost unfeasible to think that a horse is going to go from a 102 in the debut to a 110 in their second lifetime start. Otherwise, they're the greatest horse, most talented thing you've ever seen. This was an 87. This was a good 87. From a Timeform standpoint, pretty big number, a 118. This is on the heels, I believe he earned a 117 in his career debut. So Timeform has the numbers a little bit closer than Beyer does. At any rate, this horse has done nothing wrong. The interesting thing for me, anyway, is you saw the stretch run. He never changed leads at any point. Mark Henning talked about it. He said he's still green. Sometimes with young horses that don't switch leads, it means that they don't need the energy. He'll certainly keep an eye on it moving forward, and there are no definite plans yet. But he seems to think that this is a horse who will relax, and he's quick enough to try to stretch out. I've paraphrased some of that there. You can find all the quotes in the recap on DRF.com. But it sounds like Henning is saying, you know what, the lead change thing, I'm aware of it, but lightly raced horse, still figuring things out, and perhaps that's something that I've never thought of, that, you know what, until they need to change leads, why bother? Nobody's coming close to me. I haven't been asked to run too much. I'm just brilliantly fast at this point. I think Strike Power is a very, very talented horse. It would be fascinating to see if we see him try to stretch out at some point, or if they're going to keep him for the time being going one turn, but there is no denying Strike Power is a very, very talented 3-year-old. From a talented 3-year-old sprinter to a champion 3-year-old sprinter, Roy H. made his 2018 debut this past weekend in the Palos Verdes. This was the field that faced him. Not a giant field. You only had 3. Bobby Abu Dhabi was scratched the day of the race. That left you with a field of 4. Roy H. was bet down to odds of 1-5. He deserved to be 1-5 in this spot. And my goodness, this was, you want to talk about breaking sticks. This is the public workout for Roy H. coming down the lane in the Palos Verdes.
Roy H. coasting past American Eyes and Red Lightning, and they're clear of Mongolian the Saturday. Past the 8th pole comes the nation's champion, the sprinter, who has taken an iron grip on the Palos Verdes. Roy H. begins his 6-year-old season on a winning note, treating his rivals with utter contempt. Wins by 3.5, could have won by 20. American Eyes
never took a deep breath, Roy H. did. $2.40 to win the Palos Verdes, $2.10 to place. That same number goes for American Eyes, the runner-up, the number 3 horse. He pays $2.10 to place. Clearly no show wagering. $1 exact to 1-3 comes back $1.60. Think about that. You might have been just as good, close anyway, to just betting Roy H. to win as you would have been playing the exact. Neither here nor there. 50-cent trifecta 135 comes back $1.30. Roy H. is now 6 years old in his career. He has run 18 times. He's won 7 of them. He's earned just shy of $1.5 million. He's owned by Rockingham Ranch and David A. Burnson, LLC. Trained by Peter Miller. He's bred by Ramona S. Bass, LLC. Kentucky bred. He was ridden victory by Kent DeSormo. And you see the pedigree. He is by More Than Ready out of an elusive quality mare named Elusive Diva. Roy H. is one of my favorite horses in training. I think he's awesome. I think he's fantastic. For what it's worth, the color coding for the pace situation for Timeform, the half mile is color coded as blue. Roy came home in 12-3. He earned a 105 Beyer without getting out of a gallop. 123 Timeform US rating. The tough thing about this is all along, the goal has been well documented early on for him anyway, is the Dubai Golden Shaheen over at Meydan. It's going to be at the end of March. The problem now, though, is what did he get out of that? That was nothing more than a public workout, a paid workout. So it sounds like Peter Miller says that he'll likely make his next start in 5 weeks. That will be in the Grade 1 Triple Bend. That'll be at Santa Anita, and then they will turn him right around, get him on a plane, get him out to Dubai, and run in the Golden Shaheen. If for some reason they don't run in the Triple Bend, either way, Miller has said it. You're going to have to get a stiff workout into him at some point because he's too good right now for the rest of his competition in here. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they decide to call an audible and they punt on the Triple Bend. At the same time, look, if you're just that much better than everyone, I don't blame you. Why not go out there? But just expect in the coming weeks to see some sort of a workout from Roy H. in the 58 and change vicinity because this horse is just absolutely breathing fire. I love him. I think he's spectacular. Roy H. wins the Palos Verdes. Go from older sprinters on the dirt to older routers on the dirt. This is the field for the Grade 2 San Pasqual that was run Saturday at the Great Race Place. This race looked like it could have gone 15 ways, and you only had 9 horses that were going to compete in there. Eventually, your post-time favorite was the number 1 Pavel for Doug O'Neill. Needless to say, Pavel had a very, very adventurous trip, as did the number 3 Accelerate. But the good news for Accelerate, when the real running started, the rail just happened to part and everything worked out beautifully and he was able to shoot up the wood and he was much the best. Here's Michael Rona with the call.
badly blocked though in the purple cap. Then comes the lieutenant. Accelerate, skims the fence, heads Mubtahish at the 8th pole. Top of the game, Irish Freedom, Prime Attraction. And Gutierrez has to yank Pavel across multiple sets of heels. It's Accelerate the leader. He's kicking right away for Espinosa. Accelerate in the San Pasqual beats Prime Attraction. Mubtahish third, ahead in front of Pavel.
Accelerate gets the job done in an eventful trip for he, and again, an eventful trip for Pavel, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Accelerate pays $9.40 on top, winning the San Pasqual. Prime Attraction. Prime Attraction's another horse we'll talk about in a minute, but my goodness, I don't know what to do with him going forward. $12 to place. The number 2, Mubtahish, as honest as they come, $3.60 to show. The $1 exacta comes back $48. 50-cent trifecta, 382, comes back $96.05. And the $1 superfecta comes back $664.90. Accelerate is 5 of 16 lifetime. He is over $907,000 in career earnings for Hronis Racing LLC. Trained by John W. Sadler. See the breeders, Michael Abraham, based in Kentucky. Victor Espinoza with the ride. This horse is by Looking at Lucky out of the awesome, again, mare named Issues. Accelerate almost had himself some issues going on the backside because there was no pace signed on, and Victor tried to squeeze up through a hole. That hole very quickly was shut off. Victor had to kind of give him the stranglehold, get him out of there, keep him out of harm's way, and really just kind of got lucky that the rail opened up the way that it did, turning for home. Now, on the flip side, a horse that was entirely unlucky, and I don't like to bash riders, made that very, very clear. Mario Gutierrez is not one of his finer rides, not one that will be on the highlight reel here on Pavel, where had he initially just stayed outside, not suggesting that he's going to win the race, but he's going to be a heck of a lot closer than what he ultimately ended up having as far as a final margin between the winner and himself, because then he went down to the inside, had nowhere to go, angled sharply off the rail, came out about 4 or 5 path, and eventually came on to just narrowly miss out on third. So Pavel is a horse that really we still have not got to see what he's capable of doing this year, because he faced, this is his first start going up against older horses as an older horse. Then you go back to his final start in 2017. That was against 3-year-olds, but it was in the Malibu. And I maintain he was on the worst part of the racetrack, going a distance he probably doesn't want to go. And then prior to that, he ran the Breeders' Cup Classic, and that's not, they just threw him to the wolves at that point. I think Pavel still has an immense amount of ability. Doug O'Neill has said that the big cap is an option. Other than that, not really any sort of commitment one way or the other where he may end up going next. As far as Accelerate is concerned, he may start in the big cap. The big cap is on March the 10th. Other intriguing options, though, the Oaklawn Handicap, which not a surprise. John Sadler's done well shipping into Oaklawn in the past. The $1 million Godolphin Mile over in Dubai, that would be a fascinating spot should Accelerate show up there, because you would very likely get a horse like Sharp Azteca in that spot as well, and then some of the nice locally based horses over in Dubai as well. Prime Attraction. I have no idea what to do with Prime Attraction because, again, I sound like a broken record. Every time I come on and he runs in a race, I say the talent is there. There's no question about the talent. I just don't know if he's ever going to be professional. He's going to always be a goofball with his lead changes. And I don't know when he's going to run a clunker. Well, guess what? You got the good Prime Attraction on Saturday because he was very wide throughout. There wasn't much of a pace for him to run at. I know he wasn't way out of the running, but he came from off the pace. And he came on, and I think there's a real scenario if the rail doesn't open up for Accelerate, that Prime Attraction gets the job done because he was 2.5 lengths clear of Mubtahish. So Prime Attraction is a very, very interesting one. He's a candidate as well for the big cap. Distance is not a problem for him. I just never know what I'm going to get out of him. Accelerate earns a 101 buyer speed figure, a 123 time form US rating, winning the San Pasqual. I still think he's best going these middle distances. 9, I don't know that I would want to find out at 10. I already went down that road, got burned. I think he's probably better between 8 and 9. Which is why all of a sudden a race like the Godolphin Mile does become intriguing. But the rest of this field, you very easily see them come back in a race like the Santa Anita Handicap. Again, that will be the beginning of March. That'll be on March the 10th. If you're just looking for pure excitement, the best horse race of the weekend, from the graded variety anyway, was the San Marcos, the race preceding the San Pasqual. This was the field. You had defection in here, take out the inside runner, Prince of Arabia, that left a field of 7. And It's in the Post was your 4-5 favorite. He was the horse to beat. A lot of people thought Isotherm was an intriguing alternative. And if you really wanted a fresh face, the freshest face of them all, then Hayabusa 1 would have been that one. He wants the distance. He's shown some things in the past, but he's just making his second start off of a long layoff. Again, purely from a horse race standpoint, you're not going to find a better one than this. Here is the stretch run of the San Marcos.
Side trapped behind the tiring Mr. Rory. It's in the post, leads for home. Hayabusa won an editorial race setting after him. And then Free Rose getting into the clear. Past the 8th pole, it's in the post, a length to Hayabusa one, who's coming at him powerfully. It's in the post under the whip, being tackled by Hayabusa one, who is blossoming off the extended layoff, and he's in a very close photo finish at the wire with It's in the Post.
The dirtiest of noses gets it down. It's in the Post, wins the San Marcos Stakes, $3.80 on top. I feel for you if you had Hayabusa 1. That's a tough one to take. $9 to place. The number 8 Editore runs third, $4.40 to show. The $1 Exacta, $16.50. The 50-cent trifecta comes back $61 even. $1 superfecta, 5782 comes back $621.90. It's in the Post is 6 years old. Another one of my favorites. I love him. He just shows up and runs his race. He's 8 of 32 lifetime, $975,000 in career earnings. You see the owners, Red Baron's Barn LLC. Jeff Mullins is the trainer. He is a French-bred. Tyler Bays with the ride. He's by American Post out of a Mozart mare. It's in the Post. There's a 102 Beyer speed figure. Now, the interesting thing about this race is the fractions. The fractions, they were fast. They weren't that fast. They weren't what is fully published. They didn't go 45-4 and 9-2. I don't believe that. I just have a hard time buying that. I do believe that it was a fast pace, though. You saw that there was, I don't want to say it was a very spread out field, but you had a little bit of separation in there. It's in the Post was relatively close throughout. He did make a little bit of a move that I suppose you could say was premature, and it just barely worked out. Jeff Mullins said as much. Tyler could have waited just a little bit longer before he went, but it worked out. Tyler said, I knew I got the bob. You can never totally tell. I knew Victor was upset when we hit the wire. Usually that's a pretty good indication. But boy, you want to talk about getting the bob. Every bit of the bob did It's in the Post get. Conversely, Hayabusa 1. Tough pill to swallow again if you bet this horse at 14-1 because he probably, I don't want to say he was the best because he didn't win, but he was pretty darn close. It was a coin flip either way. That's a tough one to take. Tyler Bays and company get the job done. 102 Beyer for It's in the Post, 126 time form US rating. Mullins said afterward, unlikely to race again is It's in the Post until the San Luis Rey at 1.5 miles. That race is going to be contested on March the 24th at Santa Anita, and this way he's going to come into it in fresh, good form. This is a tough race. Give him a little bit of time to get everything back together and get ready to go. It's in the Post is one of those just hardy horses that you know he's going to show. He's going to run his race. Hayabusa 1, though. He may be one that we're not done hearing from. He runs big to run second here in the San Marcos. We shift our attention to Sunday. This was a Kentucky Oaks prep that was going on down at Santa Anita. This is the field for the Las Virgenes. And again, you had a very, very heavy favorite, a Bob Baffert trainee. Her name is Dream Tree. She was 3 for 3 coming into this spot. The question now was she going to be ready to go off the bench? And were any of the other 5 girls going to be able to up their game enough to make her work? The answer is no. Michael Rono with the call.
And they're followed into the stretch by Exuberance. Dream Tree quickly shrugs off 13 squared. The favourite coming past the 8th pole on a 2.5 length lead. Steph being Steph is boxing home gamely. Wider out is Exuberance, but Dream Tree's making a short work of the Las Virgenes. Dream Tree undefeated. About 4 lengths at the wire, well taken in hand. Second, Exuberance, a neck in front of Steph being Steph.
Never in doubt. Dream Tree gets the job done as your 1 to 5 choice in the Las Virgenes. Pays $2.60 on top. The number 4 is Exuberance. She runs second, pays $5.80 to place. The number 5, Steph being Steph, runs third. $2.20 to show. The $1 exact comes back $5.80. 50-cent try, $6.65. $1 superfecta, 3, 4, 5, and 1. $23.90. Dream Tree is a perfect 4 for 4 now, and she's earned $390,000 for Phoenix Thoroughbreds. Bob Baffert is a trainer, bred by Mike Freeney and Pat Freeney out of Kentucky, ridden to victory by Drayden Van Dyke, and the pedigree is a filly by Uncle Mo, and she is out of an Afleet Alex mare named Afleet Maggie. Now, the interesting thing to take away from this race anyway is if you are just strictly a numbers player, then this was not what you were hoping for from Dream Tree. She only earned an 82 Beyer speed figure and a 105 time form US rating. Those were not the fastest numbers for a 3-year-old filly on Sunday at Santa Anita. I'm going to take the other viewpoint. She's never gotten out of a gallop in their two two-turn races. The only horse that's ever made her work, I think, is really, really good. Her name is Midnight Bassu. So there's a real chance that I think they could be the two best fillies as far as 3-year-olds are concerned, leading through this entire road to the Kentucky Oaks. We'll find out if they come together. I would imagine a race like the Santa Anita Oaks is setting up for it. You hear that that is the goal for Dream Tree right now. April the 7th, Santa Anita Oaks. It sounds like they would just train her up to that because at this point everything seems to be coming up roses. Baffert had said she was fresh and she was getting a little bit excited on her way over to the gate. I love the way that she sat off of those front runners. I think she's getting better mentally and she's relaxing and she really brought it at the end. This is a filly. She came home in 27-2, which does not sound all that fast. And for a mile, frankly, it's not. But I think there is more here. I have a sneaky feeling she was far from cranked, let's say. And she just got the job done simply because she's better than these horses, and she does just exude a lot of class. I think this is an exciting filly. I'm going to be fascinated to see if we just continue to get these rematches between her and Midnight Bassu, because I do think the two of them right now, they are here, and many of the other 3-year-old girls are here. Dream Tree gets the job done in the Las Virgenes with an 82 Buyer speed figure. There were other stakes races across the country, but particularly at Gulfstream Park on Saturday afternoon that we are not going to get to as far as the full in-depth analysis is concerned. So what do we always do here on this show? When we're getting a little bit tight on time, we throw together a montage. Here's a montage of the Forward Gal, the Dania Beach, and the Swedish Champ.
Wide off the corner and still has the lead, but Heaven has my Nicky. Battles on toward the inside second. Late run from Sultry down the stand side with Morning Destiny. Final furlong, Take Charge Paula and Paco Lopez kicking away. It's Take Charge Paula clear at the 16th pole. Take Charge Paula with the win in the Forward Gal by 3.5. Sultry second, My Miss Lily third, then Heaven has my Nicky and Morning Destiny. Inside Speed Franco put to pressure on the outside. These two off the turn, well clear of Untamed Domain, who's third with less than 1/8 of a mile to go. Gidou has the lead. Speed Franco runs at him one more time. It's Gidou and Speed Franco. Speed Franco, Gidou. Gidou inside. Speed Franco on the outside. These two, it's Speed Franco. Speed Franco put his Isabella, and the leader is My Favorite Gift. My Favorite Gift has the lead. The Way I Am into the clear and coming on with Salsabella. These two charge at the leader with 1/8 of a mile to go. The Way I Am powers to the front. Salsabella late on the scene in closing ground. It's The Way I Am in front. The Way I Am, and Jose Ortiz to win it over his brother Irad Ortiz.
Some nice performances down in South Florida this past weekend, and perhaps we'll see some of those fillies and boys and whomever else ran show up in the weekend's best performances from a Buyer speed figure standpoint, as we always do. This is the list. Doesn't matter age, doesn't matter gender, doesn't matter surface. These are the best performances of this past weekend from a Buyer speed figure standpoint. And yes, some of the names are familiar. The top 3-year-old male on dirt was Audible, winning the Holy Bull with a 99 Buyer speed figure. The top 3-year-old female was Spring Lily with an 88 Buyer speed figure. That came out at Santa Anita. That was on Sunday. That was the same day that you had Dream Tree earn her 82, winning the Las Virgenes. Older male, no surprise, Roy H. absolutely pounds the field with a 105 Buyer, and he never got out of first gear. I can't tell you how much I love that horse. The older females, Shortcakes. All right, the girls had a little bit of a light weekend anyway, with an 83 Buyer. As far as the turf is concerned, you just saw Speed Franco get the job done in the Dania Beach with an 89 Buyer for the 3-year-old males. You also just saw The Way I Am get the job done for the 3-year-old fillies on the turf with an 82. That came in the Swedish Chant. As far as older males are concerned, you saw It's in the Post. He was victorious by a skosh in the San Marcos. He earns a 102 Buyer, and Bowie gets the job done for the older fillies and mares on turf with a 93 Buyer speed figure. Those are the weekend's best performances from a Buyer speed figure standpoint. Let's take a look and see what is to come for the rest of the week here on DRFTv. You have all sorts of good stuff, particularly a load of stakes previews. You have Mike Watchmaker with the Watchmaker watching the Weekend Warrior. You've got Race of the Days all over the place. DRF Bets Race of the Days. You got DRF Bet Spot Plays. And the big grade one of the weekend is the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap, but then you've got the Sam F. Davis, that's going to be coming from Tampa Bay Downs, another big 3-year-old prep, all sorts of good things going on there. And as far as Friday is concerned, it is the normal rundown. You'll have the DRF Players Podcast, Peter Thomas, Fornatal, Jonathan Kinchin at 11. You'll have the Matt Bernier Show, the preview edition, that'll be at noon. And as we always do, we roll into the latest edition of Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Forum's weekend handicapping preview program. So without further ado, we're going to wrap things up here. If you watch this live, thank you for doing so. You've got live.drf.com, you've got livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle, at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page. If you listen to podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. You want to follow me on Twitter, @Bernier_Matt. Until Friday when we meet again for the preview edition, leading you in to a fun weekend of racing. Best of luck, however you're playing, whatever you're playing, whenever you're playing. Talk soon.